My final thoughts before the Bills face the Dolphins, an injury update with Dr. Kyle Trimble of Banged Up Bills, and my 5 predictions for Sunday afternoon are all coming your way today on Locked On Bills.
You are Locked On Bills, your daily Buffalo Bills podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's up, Bills Mafia? It's Joe Marino, author of Go Bills and Buffalo's Run, also the co-host of the Locked On NFL Scouting Podcast, and I'm your host of Locked On Bills. Want to thank you for making Locked On Bills your first listen every day, and a big welcome and shout out to our everydayers. You know who you are. Those of you who never miss a single episode, I appreciate y'all being here very, very much. I'd also like to invite you to subscribe or follow for free on YouTube or wherever you listen to podcasts. We're part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Today's episode is brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off your first purchase. Last-minute tickets, lowest price, guaranteed. Well, folks, we're going to have the final conversation here on this podcast that we'll have prior to the Buffalo Bills taking on the Miami Dolphins in Week 4, an important early season AFC East contest. No, neither team will win the AFC East on Sunday, but it will certainly be helpful in their quest to do so. And so we're going to get into my final thoughts. We're going to talk to Dr. Kyle Trimble of Banged Up Bills about the injuries, and then my 5 predictions for Sunday. And something I'd love to see you guys do is participate with some predictions. I put 5 of them out there for you each week. And so if you're watching on YouTube, go to the comments and leave your 5 predictions or your 2 or 3, whatever predictions you have for Sunday, and then come spike the ball on the stuff that you're correct about. So would love to see some participation and read through the comments with your predictions. But let's get into my final thoughts. And unfortunately, we have to start with some news that came through on Friday afternoon, that being Jordan Poyer, the Bills starting safety, has been ruled out for this football game. Kind of an interesting situation because he finished Sunday against Washington. And usually when you finish the previous game, it's a good sign that you're going to play in the next one. And that's not the case here with Jordan Poyer. And so we're going to talk to Dr. Kyle Trimble about this injury, but I want to talk about the impact. As for Jordan Poyer this year, I've spoken pretty openly about how I don't think he's having his best season yet. First 2 weeks were pretty rough. I do think he played his best game of the year last week against Washington. And so you like that he's on an upward trajectory, but the bottom line here is you're losing out on a key piece of your secondary, especially from a communication standpoint, right? I talked to you on our last conversation, the primer, about the experience the Bills have in the back 7 and how much time on task those guys have together. And now you take out one of those players, right? So that kind of flies in the face of something that I thought was a benefit and an advantage for the Bills in this football game. Now, this is going to mean Taylor Rapp is going to have to play a lot of meaningful snaps, probably 100% of the defensive snaps in this football game. And, you know, Taylor Rapp's not as good as Jordan Poyer. I think Taylor Rapp is a starting caliber safety in the NFL, but you do take a hit there. Now, you probably gain something athletically. I think Taylor Rapp at this point in his career compared to where Jordan Poyer is, he's a more dynamic athlete. And so maybe that's something that you can lean into and be thankful that you have more speed on the field with him out there. But, you know, you can't replace the experience, the instincts, the physicality that Jordan Poyer brings to your defense. This also probably means that Damar Hamlin is going to be active for the first time this year. They've had him inactive the first 3 games of the season because he's the 5th safety, and you don't typically dress 5 safeties on game day. But with Jordan Poyer being ruled out, it certainly opens the door for Damar Hamlin to be active for this football game. And I'm sure that'll be really special, right? Perhaps even a boost, right, for the team with having him back out on the football field. So that'll be something exciting to see. Now, all other players for the Bills should be good to go for this game. Nobody else has a game day designation. When you do look at the Miami Dolphins, they've ruled out some significant players as well, including Jalen Phillips. Jalen Phillips, their starting edge rusher, I think is their best defensive lineman. I think he's certainly their best pass rusher, and that's a hit, right? And certainly a guy that, from the Miami side of things, you felt like could really take advantage of some battles with Spencer Brown there at right tackle, and Phillips has struggled with Brown in the past. Brown has struggled with Phillips in the past, and so that's definitely a hit for the Miami Dolphins. I think this means that Andrew Van Ginkel will play more on the edge and less kind of that off-ball hybrid role that they use him with, and you'll see David Long and Jerome Baker as the stack linebackers with Van Ginkel, Bradley Chubb, Emmanuel Ogbah as the primary edge rushers for the football team. The Dolphins also ruled out 2 wide receivers, River Craycraft and Eric Ezukama. Not that either are super high on the depth chart. You're talking about their 4th and 5th receiver. Their top 3 are good to go in Hill, Waddle, and Braxton Berrios. But their next 2 in River Craycraft and Eric Ezukama, both out for this game, and potentially some long-term or longer-term injuries there. And so this probably just means that Robbie Chosen, who, formerly known as Robbie Anderson, will be probably active for this game and perhaps have a role. I know Ezekama brings blocking ability. They like to use him on some of these horizontal run plays as well. And so they'll, lean into some other bodies to achieve those goals. But when they're in 11 personnel, I'm sure it'll be Waddle, Hill, and Berrios. And then the other primary formation they run is 21. They just won't necessarily have as much depth at wide receiver for this football game. We're still monitoring starting center Connor Williams, left tackle Terran Armstead, but I feel like both are probably going to be good to go for Sunday. A couple of Bills players received some honors this week. Terrel Bernard, the AFC Defensive Player of the Week, for his performance against the Washington Commanders. 7 tackles, 2 sacks, an interception, fumble recovery, 2 tackles for loss, and a pass breakup. Was the first player since 2007 with 2 sacks, an interception, and a fumble recovery in a game. And the player that did that back in 2007 is Hall of Famer Brian Urlacher. So cool to see Terrel Bernard do something like that. He's the first player in league history to do it, and he's only the 7th player in league history. So the first player in Bills history, the 7th player in league history, and the first one since Brian Urlacher in 2007. Terrel Bernard, not the only Bills player honored this week. Tyler Bass was named AFC Special Teams Player of the Month for September. And Tyler Bass had a great month. He was perfect. 7 of 7 on field goals, 10 for 10 on extra points. He hit 2 50-yard field goals, including that 50-yarder in week 1 against the Jets to send the game to overtime. Didn't end the way we would have liked, but the Bills had a chance there in overtime because of that 50-yard field goal that Tyler Bass made on Monday Night Football. Bass also led all AFC kickers in scoring with 31 points. Little fun fact here about Tyler Bass. He is tied with TJ Watt and Patrick Mahomes with the most Player of the Month honors since he entered the league in 2020. So that's some fun company to be in. Mahomes, TJ Watt, Tyler Bass, what do they have in common? Well, those are the 3 players that have the most Player of the Month honors since 2020. Super cool for Tyler Bass. The last thing that I want to say here in this opening segment is, for those of you who are attending this game at Highmark Stadium on Sunday, you have a real opportunity to make an impact. The Dolphins offense, it is based on timing, it's based on motion, and you got to be loud. Nobody in the stands wearing red, white, and blue should leave that stadium with a voice. When Miami has the ball, you have to be loud and potentially throw off some of the timing and throw off some of their pre-snap stuff that they like to do with your noise level. And you can't take your foot off the gas at all. Miami's going to make plays. They're going to have some explosive plays. Don't let that take the life out of you. You have to be the loudest when they are in the red zone. So Bills Mafia, it is time to be loud and give this football team an edge, right? Being at home. Dolphins hadn't won in Buffalo. 7 in a row they lost. You have a chance to help make that 8 with your effort as a fan, being loud when the Bills are on defense, and maybe that'll result in some pre-snap issues for Miami. And you saw Seattle. Seattle was going up against Carolina last week. Carolina, how many times did they jump off, have false starts? I think they had 13 penalties in the game. You got a chance to really impact this football game. Be loud and be loud for 4 quarters and be loud even after the Dolphins do something good. You got a real chance to make an impact on this football game. All right, we're going to talk to Dr. Kyle Trimble of Banged Up Bills here in just a moment. But first, if you need groceries for the week, but you don't have time to go to the store, try grocery delivery from DoorDash. You'll get everything you want delivered right to your front door, right when you need it. You've trusted DoorDash to deliver your restaurant favorites, and now you can get grocery delivery that actually delivers too. You'll get exactly what you ordered, or they'll make it right. So sit back and enjoy quality groceries just like you picked them out for yourself. Got a deal here. Get 50% off your first DoorDash order up to a $20 value when you use code LOCKEDONNFL at checkout. Limited time offer. Terms do apply. That's 50% off up to $20. No minimum subtotal and 0 delivery fees on your first order when you download the DoorDash app in the App Store and enter code LOCKEDONNFL. Don't forget, that's code LOCKEDONNFL for 50% off your first order with DoorDash. Folks, when you want to go to a game and you want to get tickets, you shouldn't have to worry about that process to get into the venue. Thank God for Game Time. Game Time is the fast and easy way to buy tickets for all the sports, music, comedy, and theater events near you. They have killer deals on last-minute tickets, all-in prices. I love that. They give you a view from your seat so you know exactly what to expect when you get into the venue. A best price guarantee. Game Time takes the guesswork out of buying tickets. The app is awesome. It's easy to navigate. They have flash deals, last-minute tickets. Everything is super easy to use, and you don't have to plan months in advance to go to a game or a theater event near you. You can buy tickets right up to the day of the game, and they have those flash deals. So check it out. The tickets are sent right to your phone. You don't have to dig through emails. They've really perfected the ticket buying process. So snag the tickets without the stress with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off your first purchase. Download Game Time today. Last-minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed. I'm joined now by Kyle Trimble. He's a doctor of physical therapy. He runs bangedupbills.com. You can follow him on Twitter at bangedupbills. He joins us each week to get us ready for the upcoming Bills game from an injury perspective. And Kyle, we got a player ruled out, Jordan Poyer. Going to miss this one with a knee injury. And these are the ones that drive me crazy, where a guy plays in a game, finishes a game, and then they don't play in the next one. What's going on with Jordan Poyer? Is this a 1-week thing? What do you have for us on JP?
You hope it's a 1-week thing. Just to give a little background here. He suffered the injury midway through the third quarter. Just a pile of bodies coming down. It looked like his right knee got hit, and he kind of stumbled backwards and kind of flexed his knee, finished the rest of the game, at least from the time that the defense was necessary, because there's some garbage time at the end. So he played, I think, about 85% of the snaps, but that last 5 minutes or so was garbage time. So he sat out. No indication from any of the beat reporters, no indication from McDermott the Monday after press conference until they said something on Wednesday that he wouldn't practice there. So we didn't have a game film as to when it happened because he played most of the game. Those are typically hard to find. My buddies over at Six Score, Pro Football Doc, Dr. David Chow, I've worked with him for a while. One of his writers had reached out to me, and he managed to find the film on Poyer. So I'm very thankful to their crew over there to help me out with that. The film showed that his knee got hit a little bit, but it wasn't anything substantial. And considering Poyer is a veteran, they need a little more rest time. You just thought maybe it was just a general maintenance thing. Let's rest him up like we saw last week with Dawson Knox, even Micah Hyde, and then get them play like we saw last week. But he was ruled out prior to Friday's practice, which was it was just interesting. We didn't have any extra context as to what happened to it there. So you hope it's 1-week thing. There wasn't anything on film to suggest that it was more, but you look at everything as a whole there. You got a healthy Jaylen Waddle come off his concussion, a healthy Tyreek Hill. You got an aging safety in the back with maybe a less than 100% knee. Maybe they said, hey, we're not even going to get you out there 80%. You could be a liability, and let's just get the young, fresh guys out there, give you a chance to rest up and be healthy later in the end of the season when they definitely do need you.
Yeah, that was one of my big thoughts is, of course, you want Poyer out there, but athletically, they may have upgraded with Taylor Rapp being on the field as the likely replacement on Sunday. Another player on the Bills, well, no other player on the Bills has an injury designation, so the rest of the team is healthy. But I do want to talk about Ryan Bates, who got a chance to come in late against Washington, and then the next thing you know, Mitch Morse is back in. So you're like, something's wrong, an ankle injury. He doesn't have a designation. He did not practice on Thursday, practice in full on Friday. Any concern here? Is this a situation where he might sit and they would lean into Alec Anderson as an active player? What do you have for us on Bates?
The fact that he was practiced throughout the week and got progressively better indicates it's not going to be a non-issue, but I think that he should be able to get through it. But like you said, Alec Anderson could be an excellent backup if he does go down for some reason. To give context as what happened, that long James Cook run at the very end of the game, I think that was before the final touchdown, where I think it was Latavius Murray who punched in. What happened was Bates and Ryan Vandemark was trying to block, and they got kind of tied up. Vandemark hit Bates. He kind of twisted down, and it looked like he hit his left knee at the beginning, but he actually somehow tweaked his ankle. And then we saw him in practice on Wednesday in like a full sleeve on the ankle. So that further supported that side. So the concern is he going to be able to push off to the right effectively off the right ankle? Is he going to be able to hold his blocks on the left without it giving way? You hope that enough tape and some rehab is going to keep that thing up. But once again, they have a lot of depth, especially at the guard position. So I'm not too concerned about Bates if he does go down for some reason.
Let's talk a little bit about the Miami Dolphins. Jalen Phillips, edge rusher, their best pass rusher. He's been ruled out for this game with an oblique. But there's two players that I'm paying close attention to, two starting offensive linemen. One of them being center Connor Williams, who has a groin injury, didn't finish the game last week against Denver. And then Teron Armstead, who missed the first two games of the season, played against Denver, but has been limited throughout the course of the week with a back, ankle, and knee injury. That's always been the name of the game with Teron Armstead, is injuries. He plays through them all the time. What are your expectations for these two players on Sunday?
I do expect both to play, though with Williams, there is a high concern for re-injury. What I've seen historically from the Bills, like I mentioned last week in my long list of injuries I have, and then also doing this stuff with the AFC East, you can play through a groin injury. It's just how much is going to tighten up on you, how much is the lateral movement going to affect you, and obviously there's a chance for re-injury. I know the Dolphins will have their guys play through groin injuries. I remember Xavien Howard has done this often. Of course, he pays for it later. So based off the information, from what I have from the Bills, along with what the Dolphins have done historically, I do expect Williams to play, but it would not surprise me if he does go down with an injury or requires medical attention at some point there. So if he does go down, I've been told that Liam Eichenberg is the backup center, which is a good thing for our Bills defensive line. So we'll see what happens with that, but I expect him to play. And then Teron Armstead, this guy's going to play through everything that he can. He did that last year. His tipping point was about 4 injuries on the injury report where they said, hey, let's shut you down. So he has knee injury scoped in the offseason. It was the right side, and that caused him to miss part of the preseason. But I believe the back and ankle injuries are more of the pressing issues. Don't know which side the ankle injury is on, but the back injury, especially being a 300+ pound guy, 6'6", whatever he is there, that's going to be a little more troublesome than maybe somebody who's 5'8" and 200 whatever. So Teron Armstead did say he's going to play. I do expect him to play and still be pretty effective. I've always just wondered what type of player Armstead would be if he wasn't dealing with all the injuries.
Hall of Famer. He'd be Hall of Famer.
Yeah.
He's just always hurt and playing through injuries, to his credit.
Yep.
But you could just only imagine a guy that's that gifted if he was healthy all the time, and we'd be probably talking about him like he's Trent Williams, who's just unbelievable at his age, what he can do and the way he can move. But that's not what we're here to talk about. Last thing here, let's talk about Von Miller, because we're officially on watch here. After the Bills played this game against Miami, he's eligible to come off of the PUP list. And so maybe talk to everyone about what we should be looking for this week as the indicators for if he's going to play against Jacksonville and London, or if it's going to be the following week. The bottom line is we're close. What should we be paying attention to?
So some things we should be paying attention to is if, one, there are any injuries coming out of the game that could potentially be an IR designation. Season injury, we don't want that for anybody, but that could play a part in Von Miller coming back quicker. With somebody of Von Miller's stature, you're going to want to move somebody off the roster, get him back on there. So we're going to see some type of transaction, but an injury is going to make it easier that you're not going to have to move somebody that you want to roster anyway. So look for that in game. That might be an indicator who kind of is that corresponding transaction. On Monday, they can open up the window and start that 21-day window. So he has 3 weeks of practice with the team. and then at any point they can activate him to the active roster, and then of course do the transaction then. So if they do have the injury, 1-for-1 transaction. If they don't have an injury, which would be ideal, you look to probably see a vested veteran be cut, because then they don't have to go through waivers, and then they can come back to practice squad or whatever they want to do with that. As for when he returns, he can come back as soon as week 5. The English soccer fields are grass, which just play benefit for Vaughn. I don't know whether 3 days of practice is going to be enough for him, but the rehab videos he's posted online, they've looked really good, and he's been looking very fluid. He did have some tape on his left thigh. Now, keep in mind, his right knee was the injured one. That suggested that sometime he had a setback at some point in mid-August. We didn't see him for a few weeks. So that might have been why he was held back on PUP, but that was a smart choice in the long run. So we obviously don't want any setbacks when he does come back. You'd hate to see him come back and then immediately start having hamstring, groin, quad, what have you. So watch for the activation 21-day window, and then I expect him to go through at least 1 week of practice, probably 2, and then that would nail your guess as to when he comes back in week 6 against Giants.
Well, whenever he's back, I just want him to be Vaughn, but we know it's going to be within the next 3 games after this, right? I mean, it won't go any longer than that. So
no, I don't think we have a Tre'Davious White situation. No,
I don't think so. All right, Dr. Kyle Trimble, as always, we appreciate you joining us to get us ready for the game from an injury perspective. Let's hope we got even less to talk about next week. Our partners at eBay Motors have teamed up with Locked On Fantasy Football host Vinny Iyer to bring you some of the best fantasy picks each week, all season long. So whether you're prepping for a daily draft or scouting the waiver wire, every week we're going to provide you with players that are guaranteed to fit on your roster. So let's see who Vinny has picked out for us on this week's eBay's Guaranteed Fit Fantasy Picks of the Week. Jaguars wide receiver Calvin Ridley has the classic rebound and revenge opportunity in London in week 4 on Sunday against his former team, the Falcons. Ridley has been pretty quiet with Jacksonville's passing game slumping the past 2 weeks, but he will return more to his stellar week 1 debut form against his new team, or his old team for his new team. The Jaguars will do better of scheming him open across the pond and making his massive target volume from Trevor Lawrence count big time once again. Vinny Iyer from Locked On Fantasy Football is going to help you win your fantasy championship, and eBay Motors knows a championship team is about each player being a perfect fit. Same with your vehicle. With over 122 million parts for your number one ride or die, you can make sure your ride stays running smoothly. Brake kits, LED headlights, roof rack bumpers, whatever your baby needs, eBay Motors has it. And with eBay Guaranteed Fit, it's guaranteed to fit your ride the first time, every time, or your money back. Plus, at these prices, you're burning rubber and not cash. Keep your ride or die alive at ebaymotors.com. eBay Guaranteed Fit only available to U.S. customers. Eligibility items only. Exclusions apply. All right, folks, we're going to get into my 5 predictions for Sunday afternoon. But first, I would like to invite you to join the Locked On Bills subtext community. Having a lot of fun over there. Been texting all week with listeners about this Dolphins game, sharing my thoughts, listening to your thoughts, having good dialogue. And one thing that you also get with the subtext community are my real-time reactions during the game. I probably send out a text after every drive, usually kind of sharing my thoughts, what went right, what went wrong, how I'm feeling. So don't miss out on that. People have really enjoyed that, and would love for you to be part of it. You also get priority when it comes to herd mentality, and it's been really cool just to be able to engage more and share more of myself with those of you who want it. So check it out, Locked On Bills subtext community. There's a link in today's show notes. So if you're on YouTube or wherever you listen to this podcast, click on the show notes, and there'll be a link for you to join, and would love for you to consider joining in on the fun. All right, let's get into my predictions. I've got 5 of them for you. Try to do some unique stuff this week. My first prediction is that both teams top 150 rushing yards. I think both teams are going to run the ball pretty well on Sunday afternoon. And for all the talk about Tua and the passing offense and Josh Allen against the Dolphins, I think running the football is going to be a key element. And I think both teams are going to find some success. And maybe you think that's a soft prediction, but I mean, surely you're thinking about Denver and the 350 rushing yards that Miami had against them, but they didn't get 150 against the Chargers or the Patriots. They had 70 against the Chargers, 145 against New England. And so I think that the Bills are going to give up a little bit on the ground in this game. And I think the Bills, will have a decent performance defending the run, but those guys are so explosive in Mostert and Achane, and I just feel like there's going to be some leaky moments, right? We know the Bills have a tendency to kind of give up some longer runs, and I think that'll happen, unfortunately. So between that and the Bills also topping 150, we talked about Vic Fangio defense, lighter boxes, and the Bills have been pretty successful running the football to start the year. They've had some good run schemes, especially, and I think they should be able to have some success doing so against Miami. So put me down for both teams getting over 150 rushing yards on Sunday. Number 2, we're still going to talk about rushing yards, but I want to predict 50 of them coming from Josh Allen. I really, really believe Josh Allen running the football in this game is going to be important, not just on some scrambles, but designed quarterback runs, QB power. Let's lean into that. And like I talked about, Fangio, light boxes, right? You can make those boxes even lighter by using your quarterback to run the football. It really gives you a math advantage. And I think in a game like this, it could stabilize Josh Allen, where he knows he's got to go out there and play well and be patient and, certainly make some plays. I think leaning into his ability to run the football will be very, very helpful. So put me down for at least 50 rushing yards from Josh Allen in this football game. Number 3, I don't think either quarterback is sacked more than one time. I'm not saying that there's not going to be moments of pressure and affecting quarterbacks, but I don't think either one gets sacked more than one time. I mean, Tua hasn't been sacked more than once on the season through 3 games. And Josh Allen, I think he's been sacked 7 times, if I'm not mistaken. But I feel like the Bills' protection schemes have been really sound, and Miami's without their best pass rusher, Jalen Phillips. And so I think you will see both teams do things to try to affect these quarterbacks, but I'm not sure either one gets sacked more than one time. So put me down for neither Tua or Josh Allen getting sacked more than once. Number 4, Stefon Diggs accounts for less than 38% of the Bills' passing yards. And that's exactly what he's accounting for right now. 38.2% of the Bills' passing yards this season have gone to Stefon Diggs. I think Diggs will make some plays, but I think the real riddle for the Bills on Sunday is involving other players, especially, potentially Gabe Davis. If he has some matchups against Eli Apple or Kader Kohou, who, he should have a size advantage. I know Kohou's done well against some bigger bodied receivers, but I think you want to test that. I think Dalton Kincaid, Dawson Knox, they've got a really outstanding safety in Xavien Howard, but I think he can only cover one guy. And I think you can lean into those other tight ends. Maybe you want to get Trent Sherfield some opportunities against his former team. James Cook in the passing game. So I just feel like Diggs will have a role, and I'm not saying he's going to get shut down. I'm certainly not predicting that, but Fangio's going to play, he's going to double him up. He's going to play high-low on him, and it's going to be necessary for Josh Allen to work the football to other targets. And so I think Steph will make some plays, but I'm expecting his receiving output to be under 38% for, that's where it's been this year. So I think he'll be under that when it comes to his total impact on this football game in terms of yards. I think there's just going to be some better matchups out there for the Bills to target. And then lastly, I know I kind of predicted this on the crossover Thursday, but put me down for a Bills win. I feel like all of the conversation for this game is about Miami and the problems that they present coming off of a 70-point outburst against the Denver Broncos. And, how are the Bills going to stop them? And this run game looks like it's unbelievable. And they run crack toss and speed, leverage, timing. It's all really good. And all of that's true. All of that's true. But the Bills present a lot of problems for Miami too. They haven't solved the Josh Allen riddle. Their run defense has been shaky this year. The Bills have shown the ability to run the football as well. They don't have a 350-yard game, but who does besides Miami? I think that there's a normalization, okay, that will happen in this game. And could I be wrong? Could the Dolphins go out there and just be a complete juggernaut that the Bills have no answer for? Sure, absolutely. Totally within the realm of possibilities. But the Bills are at home, and it's a division game. And you saw quite the contrast in the offensive output that Miami had against LA and Denver compared to the division rival they've already played in New England. It's 24 points compared to 36 against the Chargers and 70 against Denver. And I'll go as far to say that I don't think the points are going to be as high as what a lot of people think they're going to be in this game. Some are thinking that both teams can push for 40 points. I don't think so. I would not be surprised if this is a 27-24 type game or a 31-27 type game. That's a lot of scoring, but not this shootout that some people are potentially anticipating. I wouldn't be surprised if both teams are in the 20s. And so, yeah, I think Miami has positioned themselves to be the hyped up team, right? They're 3-0. They're the only 3-0 team in the AFC. They've been really impressive offensively. Like, I get it. They've earned the hype. But the Bills present a lot of problems for Miami too. And guess what? Nobody's winning the division after this game. And I'm sure you're going to see all the screenshots of the AFC standings. And there's a world where the Dolphins come out of this game 4-0. The Bills are 2-2, and the rest of the division's 1-3. Who cares? You got to play them all. You got to play all of the games. Be the exact same scenario the Bills were in last year. And so I kind of wanted to zoom out a little bit there and talk about those dynamics. But I know the Bills are favored in this game, but it feels like they're the underdogs. It feels like all the hype is on Miami. And I think that's kind of where Sean McDermott wants it to be. Should be a fun football game. Enjoy it. Enjoy the competition, right? I know that there's a lot of emotion in these types of games, but appreciate the competition. Appreciate what the Bills have been and how Miami has worked really hard to build a roster capable of competing, right? That's the NFL. And so what do the Bills have up their sleeves to stay on top of this division? It's going to be fun to find out. But put me down for a Bills win. All right, folks, real quick, my predictions. Both teams over 150 rushing yards, 50 rushing yards or more for Josh Allen. Neither quarterback is sacked more than once. Stefon Diggs accounts for less than 38% of the Bills' passing yards, and the Bills win. All right, so join the Locked On Bills subtext community. I'll hit you up on Bleacher Report right after the game. I'll give you my immediate reaction and, of course, my post-game reaction. You know what's coming. That and then the All-22 review. So plenty of content coming your way every week. That's the drill over here on Locked On Bills. We're your team every single day here on the Locked On Podcast Network. Have a great weekend. Enjoy the game. Go Bills. And I'll catch up with you following the conclusion.